Where I left off in the last video, I had just clicked all around here to create this shape, did it with an odd color that'll eventually become white. And as you can see, it's pretty accurate, but if we zoom into an area like that, you can see that once it changes white, it's not perfect. But all we have to do is stay zoomed in like that, navigate over to each corner, and that's where we might want to really zoom in, and that's the key to accuracy in this program, is really zooming in when you get to something that needs accuracy. And then, as before, make sure nothing is selected. Click on only that anchor point and just drag it exactly to where it needs to go. If I hold down the space bar right now, that direct selection tool will temporarily turn into the hand tool. When I get to where I want to go, I'll release the mouse, and then I'll just continue doing that on all four corners. Okay, then our only task is to change the color on that to white. And let me just back up and show you a couple different ways to change colors. So one is you bring, let's say the stroke was forward, bring the fill forward, double click on it, it'll open up this. Now in here you have a whole bunch of different ways of modifying colors, but one of the easier ones to understand is CMYK, which stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So if I click way over here in the corner, I might get it perfect, which would be all of these set to 0. I'll try clicking up even higher. Yeah, close. If I don't get it quite perfect, then I can just go in and manually enter 0 tab, 0 tab. And so I know if all of these are 0, I have white. Now, another way of working with the colors is this actual color guide. And if it's not showing for here or over here, which it usually does when you click on this, but you can also remember everything that's not showing up over here you can get from window, and then you would go into color. And in color, you always have these three options at the bottom, which is all you need for this project: none, black, and white. But you can also mix the colors here, and it's kind of interesting to see when you slide yellow to here. You know, it shows you what happens visually as you slide magenta, which color you will end up with over here. But don't need to worry about that for this project, but that's probably the easiest way to take care of that. Although I don't have it selected anymore, so select, go over here, click on there. Okay, we're good. And if we want to go up here to view and go to trim view, we get an idea of what our project is looking like, and that's kind of a bizarre little effect. It kind of looks like the disco floor is going right through our rectangular object. Now I want to show you one other thing that relates to a question that I often get on this project. So let me just go ahead and draw something here. So I'm going to draw just a stroke that is filled with black. And let's just start about here, go to here. And let's make that bigger by going into properties, increasing the stroke size. So sometimes I will get the question, well, what if I have this stroke here and I want it to get smaller as things go? Well, in the name of learning right now, let's just keep it simple and let's just make that ourselves. So the key difference between a stroke and a fill is that a stroke is this just line or outline, and if we increase the size of the stroke, it makes it wider, and we can make it so wide that it looks like a rectangle that we drew. And that's the hint for how you would actually do this, is you're going to just, let's lock the layers just to be safe here. Let's create another layer on top for drawing our diminishing stroke or rectangle or whatever you want to call it. And remember, the zoom tool is always your friend here. So we're going to get in really close here. We're going to, this time we're going to select the pen tool with just a stroke on it. I always like drawing with a stroke and then flip-flopping it. And so we're going to click here, and if you remember that little trick with the space bar, we can still keep the pen tool selected, and then we can just scroll up there with the hand tool, click in the center of that one, hit the space bar, scroll down, click there, and then click back there to complete the path. Now at first that looks worse than what we had, but remember it's got a stroke on it, and it's got a big stroke on it. So we'll flip-flop the fill in the stroke because it's still selected. We can do that right now. Then when we turn this layer off that we created the other one on, now we have, and let me back up, Command minus, now we have this stroke that goes from thick to thin, but it's not really a stroke. It is a rectangle. I want to make a point here. It's rare that you ever need a stroke in a fill of the same color. In fact, the way I work, it's rare that I ever have a stroke and a fill at the same time. Let me first show you an example where you would want a stroke and a fill at the same time. So let's say that we just wanted a square here to look like it was sitting on top of everything. Well, obviously that doesn't do it, right? Even if we beef up the stroke a little bit, it's just anyone's guess where that thing is. So if we want it to be clear that this is the topmost item on here, then, especially for this project, the only way to accomplish that is to fill the inside with white. So we select the fill, change it to white, and now it looks like that is sitting on top. Just going to delete that. But a stroke and a fill of the same color, that is extremely rare that that's ever going to serve a purpose for you. So a lot of times when a student tells me, you know, I expected this to turn out much skinnier. I know when I draw it, in fact, you can see the little outline there. That's what the student was expecting. So first thing I do is I select it, look over here in the tools panel, I see, well, yep, probably the reason you're not getting what you want is you also have a stroke on it. Bring the stroke forward, click on the none option, and aha, that is indeed what I wanted. I also want to mention, but I do not recommend, that there is a paint bucket option in Illustrator. When you have a grid of lines, you can like click inside of the grid just to fill one grid area with a color. But the way I showed you with the Pathfinder dividing that up, that is a much better way to work. It's how people, if you're making a logo for someone, they're going to expect you to have complete control over each element in that logo rather than just simply filling things in with a paint bucket. But if you're interested in learning about that, feel free to Google the subject or YouTube the subject. So I want to move on and tell you just a little bit about the rectangle tool. But remember, I said that you can complete this project. In fact, I just did one without the rectangle tool. But here's just an advanced option for you to know about. So if you want to create a rectangle and you don't want to have to go click, click, click and worry about keeping everything straight, like I'll purposely make this one a little crooked. So you're like, no, I want a perfect rectangle. Okay, so you can grab the rectangle tool, and let me just show you that this is housed with a lot of different things. So sometimes you're looking for it and you're like, where the heck did that rectangle tool? You just got to know that it's about here. Click, hold down, go to rectangle tool, and right now I have this set with a fill, which is why we got that thing above. Most of the time I like to draw with just a stroke on. And so you're going to get a perfect rectangle when you use that. In fact, if you want a perfect square, hold down the shift key while you're making your rectangle. And let's say we wanted these filled in with black, we'll just select both of them and flip-flop the fill and the stroke. And let's say that it turned out that we actually wanted this black rectangle to be a little bit distorted. Well, that's when you click away, grab your direct selection tool, click on just one corner, and voila, you can distort the rectangle that you drew. And the strokes work the same way. So if we just had a stroke on this, you can tell it's pretty thin right now. I can select this. I can go into my properties, click on stroke, and actually I don't even have to click on stroke. I can just go right directly in properties, and if I beef up the stroke, you can see instantly what happens. So I think the big takeaway from these last 3 videos is until you get really good with the program, don't worry about being perfect at first. You can always take your early work as a reference, lock those layers, draw on top of it with some new knowledge, whether it's from this video, YouTube videos, and get the perfection that you need. Illustrator is really made to be a perfection program. Everything you draw in here you can make as accurate as you need. So by the time you turn this project in, we don't want to see the sloppy lines, the happy accidents, and you don't want to be on the fence in general. You'll probably, if you take me for more graphic design classes, you'll hear me say that a lot. And just in design in general, you either want things like to snap and be perfectly aligned, or you want to show that they shouldn't be. Just give you an example of that. It would be human nature, not just me, your instructor, saying that this looks sloppy, because over here you have this one that's perfect, right? So if you have this one that's not so perfect, but you're saying that's what I meant to do, it's a hard sell. So if you're doing something that you really meant it to be not perfect, then make it clear that that's what's supposed to be. Just like right here, see how these are nice and aligned perfectly, but this one's not? Pretty tough sell that that's not just an accident. So if you meant it to not be aligned for whatever reason, you know, show us that that's what you meant. Otherwise, make that thing perfect and align it right to the others. Whoops, that's not perfect. So I would zoom in on that and make it perfect, work on it till it is perfect. Okay, and I showed you how filling something in with white will make it look like it's coming forward. And then once you're done with your design, you go in, you clean it up, you get it ready for the printer, or in this case for your instructor. And if you look at the handout and the rubric for this project, you can tell that I'm looking to see the 10 by 10 and the artboard set up to 11 by 17, ready to print with crop marks. So if you want to keep everything you've done in here for later, just go up here, do a file save, then get it ready to turn into me, do a file save as, and maybe add turn into Steve to the end of the document, and then you're ready to clean up. So first thing, take your artboard tool, get rid of any artboards that are not needed, and then get rid of any art that is not needed. Remember, we said you got to put the crop marks in before you change the size of the artboard. And you could either do it now on this artboard, but let's say for whatever reason you didn't want crop marks on this artboard. So now you're just going to simply grab the artboard tool, make sure that nothing is locked. Otherwise you get this that says, hey, I can't really copy everything you're asking me to. So I Command Z that, I go up to edit, make sure, or sorry, object, make sure that I can't select anything here. Then I go to layers, make sure that all of my layers are unlocked, and then I try that again. So with the artboard tool, click, hold down the Option key so that I get an exact copy. Give me some decent space in there between them because I want room for the crop marks. Oh, something's still locked. Oh, I know what it is. There's some hidden stuff. But yeah, I got everything that I needed. But there was probably a thing or two else. Yep, there we go. Thing or two else on here that had the eyeball toggled. Okay, but that's good. Got everything. So these two look identical. That's the main thing. Then we're going to draw our rectangle on here, not to the bleed, but from artboard to artboard. And I'm probably not zoomed in as much as I should, so I'm going to have to be very careful and read this down here and see. Yeah, you see how the numbers are goofy? I should be expecting exactly 10 by 10. So I'm just going to go too far, hit the delete key, learn my lesson, zoom in, get that full screen like that. And another way to do that actually is with the hand tool here. You just double click on the hand tool and it brings it up as big as that artboard will fit on screen. And then I'm going to get rid of all my extra stuff here. Grab the rectangle tool, go right to the corner, right to that corner, and I should see, looking in that little rectangle box, that it says exactly 10 by 10, although I can't see the height right now. But if I look in properties with it still selected, I see it's 10 by 10, and I was careful to go from corner to corner, so I know that's good. And you can see it's got